Welcome back to the special Sunday Live from here at the Literary Festival in Hay. Well, whoever won the election, Britain is still at war in Afghanistan. And joining me now are two authors here at the Hay Festival. They are the former Dutch politician and author of Nomad, From Islam to America, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and also the journalist and author Christopher Hitchens, whose autobiography, Hitch 22, is out now. Also here, the newly elected MP, Rory Stewart, Conservative MP for Penrith and the Border, who is a former diplomat, soldier and explorer. And we have a question from Sam Mahmood. Mr. Mahmood.
Yes, can you really win a war if you change the goals mid-course? The Allies went to war with the Taliban for harboring Al-Qaeda and not to build the country or the infrastructure. Had they offered all of that before the attack, the Taliban may have offered bin Laden themselves.
Rory Stewart.
I think there are three things that we can do in Afghanistan. I think we can decrease the chance of a terrorist attack. I think we can help development in northern Afghanistan. I believe we can get a political solution going, or we can increase the chance of a political solution. But I think talking about winning and losing in a war against the Taliban has been a big problem for the last 8 years and a big distraction. We put things in these very grand black and white terms. We can achieve things, but they're probably more modest and smaller than people pretend.
And nation building, is that part of what we should be doing?
I think that's a job predominantly for Afghans. I think over 20 or 30 years, Afghanistan can become more stable, more prosperous, more humane. But it's a job for a Karzai government. It's a job for Afghans to lead. We can support and help. But it's not the job of Britain or the United States to create somebody else's constitution or tell them how to run their country.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
I think we have to change the name of the war. We are not waging war on terror. It's Islamic-inspired terrorism. And just to give you an idea, in the last 2 months, 2,000 people were killed, 4,000 people were injured in the name of Islam. That's mostly in Muslim countries. It's in Afghanistan, it's in Iraq, it's in Somalia. And there have been many attempts here in the UK and in the United States, in the West. And I think we shouldn't only be talking about losing and winning. We can't even talk about losing and winning if we don't define the problem properly. And
you would see it as what, a war against Islam?
It is Islam-inspired. It's financed by Muslim countries or wealthy Muslims. It's done in the name of Islam, and the people who want to die for what they believe in are Muslims. And unless we address those convictions, we are going to be mired in a violent cycle where there is no winning and losing, and we haven't even embarked on the propaganda, war on propaganda and the ideology. And I think if we define it correctly and accurately, we could possibly win it.
Chris Hitchens, is that how you would define the task in Afghanistan?
I must say I thought that the question is a supposition that if we'd made a nice offer of creating a modern and developed society, the Taliban might have been nice enough to accept it, has a long way to go before it's even naive. That people like the Taliban are often said to be the product of poverty and unemployment. That's not the case at all. They are the deliberate cause of poverty and unemployment. They, for example, begin by sacrificing and repressing the talents of 50% of the population. And also making war on other Muslims. The genocide of the Taliban against, often forgotten, the Hazara population, the generally Persian in origin, generally Shia, a large population of Afghanistan practically put to the sword. Iran nearly invaded Afghanistan to stop that happening.
Yep.
We have a quarrel with Al-Qaeda, not just about its nasty habits of terrorism, but about its creation of societies that are failed to begin with. And it's out of failed societies that rogue societies come. So we can't be neutral about that, any more than we can be neutral about the attempt to enslave the women of Afghanistan or put one of its ethnic minorities to the sword. Our signature on the Genocide Convention alone mandates that we take this kind of thing very seriously.
Do you see things in ideological or religious terms as articulated?
I think the key question is what we can do. There's a lot of talk about the dangers out there, the threats out there, but not enough talk about our power. How much we know, how much Afghans want to work with us. So I agree. Taliban, an extremely brutal and unpleasant organization, but the real question is, what can we do about it?
I mean, you've talked about talking to the Taliban.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the central question, and I think this is perhaps where Christopher and myself disagree, is about our power. I think that we've been in Afghanistan for 8 years. We've put a lot of troops on the ground. The question now is almost village by village, community by community, how we mobilize support, how we get things done. We don't have a moral obligation to do what we cannot do.
Mr. Mahmood, do you want to come back? You've been accused of being a long way short of naive. Do you accept that?
No, I wouldn't say that. It's about deciding policy as you go along, and I think that's been one of the features both of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I think that has a lot to do with some of the fiascos we've seen.
Well, I mean, your point is we simply not understanding what's going on in the West, in America and Britain.
I think if we were to define the problem more accurately, we would be able to wage a war, not just on a tactic, but on ideas and ideology. If we would start, just as in the Soviet Union, to implode the Islamist movement from the inside by appealing to the hearts and minds, and especially to the reason of Muslims who are exposed to it. The Iranian population, for instance, has lived with Sharia law. They know what it means, and they're rejecting it. That's a very large population, that's a young population, and these people can be inspired with a different ideology, a different source of morality. We could do the same in Afghanistan. We could even do it here in the UK and the US, but we refuse to define the problem accurately.
Should we go as far as that, to effectively try and reprogram societies?
I don't see the world in that way. I believe that we need, in dealing with a religion, to show an enormous amount of respect and understanding, and we cannot get ourselves set into a situation where we start using the language of warfare in dealing with other cultures and other religions. I think it makes perfect sense to identify dangerous people and to try to deal with them. But basically what we need, above all, is a focus on the precise and the local, understanding how a community works rather than making generalizations about an ideological war.
Hirsi, you got the final word.
Well, OK, let's not forget we were already committed in that part of Asia, and we always will be, to, among other things, and I would say most importantly, our alliance with India. A great...
so when will we withdraw, do you think?
Well, I would say as long as we maintain a real alliance with India, a serious, secular, multi-ethnic, multicultural
when do you think we're
republic,
going to withdraw?
What do I think?
Yeah, the Americans and British will be out.
You did ask me a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but time is against us. Just got a quick...
There's no withdrawal from our alliance with India. You can't,
I don't think we will.
Nor should there, it shouldn't even be discussable.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. That's all from this special edition of Sunday Live from the Hay Festival. Thanks to all the guests this morning and to the studio audience. And stay with Mariella on Sky Arts all week for the book programme.